Alright, so let's take it on back to a better time, to the 70s, where things were like super cool and swinging and free love and sexy. Unless you were gay. Then, well, not so much. Wild About Harry, aka American Primitive, is brought to us by director Gwen Wayne and stars Tate Donovan, Adam Pascal, Josh Peck, and Stacey Dash. This is the story of the havoc that is wreaked on a teenage girl's life when she discovers that her widowed father is gay. So Wild About Harry is, I think, based on a true story, or it's based on something that actually happened, kinda, sorta. The beginning doesn't say based on a true story, it says based on true circumstances. And while I guess I technically know what that means, when it comes to a movie and they open it that way, I'm not 100% sure what they mean there. In the end of the movie, given who the movie is dedicated to, I'm assuming that some of the events, if not all of them, are inspired by or taken from the life of the director's father and his part. Not 100% sure because, as I'll touch on in just a few minutes, finding a lot of information about this movie was a bit difficult. It's 1973 in Cape Cod, and the dashingly British Harry, played by Tate Donovan, and his two daughters have recently moved in, but they're not alone. They also have a house guest. This would be Harry's business partner, Theo, played by Adam Pascal. Now, it's presented to Harry's daughters that Theo will be living with them while he is looking for a place to live in Cape Cod. However, as they soon find, there's a little bit more to this relationship than just business. After seeing their father and Theo out partying it up and clearly being more than just business partners, one of the daughters figures out, oh, my dad, who's widowed, their mother recently died, by the way, or at least somewhat recently. It doesn't say how long it's been, but you get the feeling it hadn't been too long. But they figure out, oh, well, dad's gay. Soon this gets around the school and everybody starts talking. The in-laws get involved, and then who's going to keep the girls comes into play, and of course this bothers Harry. Now you gotta think, this is 1973, and while I don't know all the laws from 1973, apparently according to this movie, if you were homosexual in 1973, you couldn't raise kids. So Harry is threatened with having his children taken from him, and this is why he's kept his relationship with Theo such a secret. That, and you know, he's gay, and it's fucking 1973 in Cape Cod. So ultimately what we get to see is this movie with these two people in love, but they can't be openly in love. And I know that this was, and to a degree still is today, the way a lot of people have to live, and that kinda sucks. Our story's a pretty simple one, yet it is relatable, and I don't mean necessarily that you're just gay that it's relatable. Maybe myself, I'm straight, but I have kids, and I couldn't imagine if someone was going to try and take them from me because of something I believed or felt. That's pretty much what Harry's got to deal with here, is just because the way he feels, who he is, now the law is threatening to take his children that he cherishes away from him. And I really liked how the movie illustrated this to us. This is a different time that we're seeing here. This isn't nowadays. Nowadays, it wouldn't even be a question. But back then, it was like a legit worry. Now, the movie plays out pretty straightforward. In fact, it even has a bit of a comedic tone to it for a good portion of the film. Now, when we get a bit closer to the end, they start laying off the comedy and the drama really kicks in. I think this was a good idea. This made the movie much more enjoyable. And even though there is comedy, it's never making fun of anyone. This isn't one of those movies from like the 90s or something where they're like making fun of gay people. I mean, there are gay people in it, and it does center on homosexuality, but it's never the butt of the joke. The jokes mainly come from people that just don't know. Because Harry, as you can tell from the name, Wild About Harry, Harry's a pretty attractive guy. He's played by Tate Donovan, and all the single women in Cape Cod apparently are swooning over him. Little do they know, they're barking up the wrong tree though. This is where a lot of the comedy from the movie comes from, and I mean, it's pretty decent. This isn't like laugh out loud comedy, but it's pretty enjoyable comedy. I did have a pleasant smile throughout the whole thing. And that's a good word for this movie and its narrative overall. It's pleasant. It doesn't necessarily deal with pleasant things the entire time, but the movie is presented to us in a very enjoyable, pleasant way. I did enjoy the story here. Like I said, it's pretty basic and straightforward, but it is a relatable story. It is a story that you can get behind our characters' motivations and actually have something to rally for. I enjoyed the story of this movie overall. Now, performance-wise, this is where things get a bit tricky. As far as the actual performances themselves, they're all pretty good. These are believable characters and they're believable performances. They're all funny when they need to be, and they've all got heart when they need it. All of our leads do a really good job, but Adam Pascal, for me, was the standout. He was the most believable, real performance in the film to me. But like I said, everybody else did a pretty good job as well. There are a few moments that some of the dialogue dialogue just seems a bit forced, but it's never like too crazy. It's not too out there. It doesn't ever pull you out. For the most part, they're solid performances across the board. Now, I said this was when things got tricky. That's because there are a lot of accents in this movie, and none of them are the accents that the actors actually have. This takes place in Cape Cod, and there's this kind of odd accent that some of the people in the film had. Now, I know that people from Cape Cod and up around that way, they have their own accent, but I gotta say, I don't think this is the one. Depending on the performer, the accent is really sketchy, and it's also really hit or miss. Sometimes it's just not there. Other times it's laid on real thick, but it doesn't really sound like a Cape Cod accent. Sometimes it sounds like they're trying to do a British accent. Sometimes it sounds like they're trying to sound like they're from the Bronx. I mean, it's just really all over the place. And then there's Tate Donovan, who has a British accent in this movie. And if you didn't know, Tate Donovan is not British. He is in fact from New Jersey. Now that's not to say that American actors can't do British accents. They do them all the time, and they do them really well. It just wasn't done very well in this movie. The accent that Donovan gives us is very stereotypical British accent. It just does not sound natural. That, coupled with the other accents in this movie that are just all over the place, it's like nobody is speaking the way that they actually speak in real life, and it comes across really odd. It does pull you out quite a few times. Now, like I said, this was a weird situation because the actual performances they're giving, the emotion, the inflection, all of that, it's there. They're doing a pretty good job. The dialogue, everything, for the most part, is pretty good, but these accents really did pull me out of this thing. About a third to halfway through the movie, you kind of sort of get used to it, but it's always there. These are unfortunately some pretty bad accents, and they do encumber the actual performances. Guys, there's not a whole lot more I can say about this movie. Overall, the story, narratively, it was fairly enjoyable. I like the story they were trying to tell here. Performances, partly, were pretty good. The movie looks good, all that. I enjoyed this movie, but man, the accents were so all over the place and really hard to get into that it did really affect the movie negatively. If it wasn't for those accents, honestly, this movie would have probably gotten a higher grade for me. But as it stands, it is still a pretty enjoyable ride, and I did enjoy this story and think it was a good story to be told. And while watching it, you may be rolling your eyes at these corny ass accents that a lot of the characters have. It is still worth checking out on streaming.
Across the street.
This is a pretty good, alright movie that had potential of being more. If you could get past those few little issues I listed, I think there's some enjoyment to be found here. So if you're looking for a fairly enjoyable film for the night, then check out Wild About Harry, and I think you'll have a pretty good time. So there it is, guys, my review of Wild About Harry. If you enjoyed and want more content like this, hit that subscribe button and help my little channel grow. If you want to help out the channel, check out my Patreon in the description below and become a jarhead and get some of the awesome benefits to go along with that, like these guys, and possibly join my top tier and become a bad motherfucker like my man Greg C. and Dragon Con. If you liked what I had to say, give me a like. If not, let me know in the comments below why. And as always, stay sexy, Cape Cod.
Law does not allow homosexuals to raise children.
How would you like it if your children were taken away from you? I won't stand for it!
Now, I was going to include this in the main review, but it doesn't really have much to do with the actual review of the movie, so I'm going to stick it in right here. This movie was really hard to find information about. In fact, when I started digging, I think, I could be wrong because I couldn't find like concrete evidence, but I'm pretty sure this movie, it did just come out. I got an actual preview screener of this movie, but I think it was made in 2009, maybe even 2008. This is an old fucking movie as far as I could tell. I couldn't tell while watching it. I mean, it looked like it was in the 70s, so maybe that's why. According to what I found, this movie's more than 10 fucking years old, but it's just now getting released. However, if you look online, you can see places where it may have been released other times. Maybe it was limited release. I don't know. This movie really fucking confuses me because I'm looking for it. I'm trying to find information to do this review, to put some stuff, to have some stuff to say about it. There's this one from 2009 and 2008 that keeps popping up. And then when I look at the copyright within the film's credits, it says 2010. So yeah, I think this is an old fucking movie that I just got sent a brand new screener because they're just now releasing. Why? I don't know. The plot thickens. I really just kind of want to know more about this movie. But if you look online, you can't find shit. The internet failed me today.